All right, hi there. For you, those people that don't think about wealth generation, this would probably be extremely boring. But I'm going to give you basically four thoughts I've been thinking about since being here in China. Have some time at the airport. You can see the cool kind of wavy design of the airport here, the international terminal. My plane isn't here yet, but it'll be right down over there. And I still have a good hour and 20 minutes, so hopefully it'll get here. So I made some notes because it's always really hard to kind of have a conversation with yourself, knowing that you're essentially having a conversation with somebody else, or every time you watch this. So I have to kind of look at my notes here. And they're just kind of random thoughts, but I think they'll all tie in together, I hope. First of all, one of the things that has to be understood about China is that there is a whole generation, last 20 years, easily the last 20 years, so you're talking the 90s and now the 2000s, that has experienced incredible growth, 10%, 12%, even in the worst times last year with the economic downturn. I think it dropped down to maybe 8.5% growth. The United States hasn't seen that kind of growth probably since the end of World War II. So, I mean, that puts things in completely different perspective. The United States right now is lucky to, I don't know what the statistics are, but in a healthy economy in the last 20 years, it's been about 3%. And that's in a healthy economy. So you have a whole generation here that is got a completely different perspective on life. The other thing is, they're not spoiled brats. Yeah, they're into consuming things, they're into buying the latest stuff, but they're respectful. They're not out to prove anything or make a statement. That's probably a good tie-in with the historical aspects of the communism. But there's no rebellion. And the best way to put that is, I didn't get a sense of any type of drug or alcohol abuse, and especially that age group. Yeah, there's just no party atmosphere that was, is so much part of even the youth in the United States. So they're going to be. They're not going to be burdened by those costs that drugs and alcohol produce on a society. And as you know, in the United States, I'd say, okay, I'll be reasonable, 75% of what the cops do in community after community is chase down drug users, either through petty theft to go purchase drugs or violent crimes related to drug deals. I mean, that's a huge, huge burden on our society that they simply don't have here. I bet you take that out of the equation in the United States and you'd easily get 1 or 2% positive GDP growth. The other piece of that is because of the one-child policy, which, as I pointed out in some of my other videos, there's a lot of families that have more than one child, different ethnic groups, people pay for them, things like that. But overall, because of the one-child policy, which is still very much part of the overall trend, you have up to 4 to 6 parents, if you start throwing in the grandparents that are always there, raising this child. So they have a lot of supervision. There's no messing around when you've got that many parents actively involved in your life. So again, something that really, I pause to think about and reflect to, especially my generation, where I saw both parents, as well as most of my colleagues in this quote, what are we, the X generation, we were raised by basically maybe a half a parent. we were pretty much set on our own as the 70s and 80s took place and started to kind of tear apart American families, which, by the way, was primarily driven by drugs and alcohol. So you can see there's quite a bit of difference here. And I really get a sense of it. Shanghai is more populous than New York City, but it's more safe than anything I've ever experienced for a city this size. It's just remarkable. Okay, switching a little bit more to the economics here. Ironically, I can't underline, quote, italicize, ironically, China is probably the most free capitalistic country you can experience. And again, my perceptions might be a little skewed because it's Shanghai, but I didn't get any sense or any complaint that the, quote, government is preventing economic growth here. I mean, clearly the most obvious things are hardly any regulations, our environmental safety, OSHA, anything like that. Yeah, the workers are protected in some level, and that's part of that history with the Communist Party, really protecting the workers. But outside of that, I mean, it's a free-for-all. People are able to pretty much go and do what they want, and in almost all economic environments. So I would say to you, freestylist, hardcore capitalists, you should be in China and stop trying to convert socialist America, if you will, back to this hardcore. You should just come here and you can experience it for yourself and see what your results will be, because it's still a mess here. As nice as it is, it's still, it stinks. There's no clean water in any of the urban districts. There's things breaking down all the time. It's like the rate of growth is, I came to this idea back when I was a kid, I had this obsession about building tree forts and forts, and most of my colleagues had that same thing. You're just so anxious to get building, and you don't really think about the long-term effects, and you just want to get something built, You're hammering nails, and they bend over, and they fall off, and it's crappy wood, and, you're just trying to just go, so you can continue the fantasy. If it's warlords, in my case, it was spy games and things like that. But there's no consideration for beyond the construction. If I can form this video right, there's going to be hopefully a few snapshots of just these things that I saw along the way, just day-to-day kind of really bizarre maintenance issues, just basic general maintenance issues that in some ways is part of what burdens in some way the United States growth. But if you don't consider maintenance for all of the development you're making, if you're not thinking, well, these bricks and these sidewalks are going to have to be replaced in a few short years, there's a cost that you probably didn't consider in the overall cost. So it's just, they've been growing so fast and so hard that there is I see a future, a potential liability. Even the building I lived in was only maybe 15 years old. It was already starting to show some pretty significant signs of wear. I'm sure it looked really awesome when it was done, but now if you look more closely, a lot of the concrete is cracking, things are breaking, steps are missing, chips. I had a pretty significant leak when it rained in my bathroom, and I could tell also that there was a lot of kind of heavy-duty maintenance going on in that building because it's primarily concrete, and the only way to really fix concrete is a lot of jackhammering. And I heard a lot of jackhammering, the small jackhammers, not the big ones like on the road, but the small construction type. Probably chipping away and opening up where water leaks were happening and things like that, especially on the top floors. So, in the United States, we learned that lesson maybe 2, maybe 3 generations ago when we were so rapidly growing and developing that all of a sudden all that growth needed to be maintained, and we experience it right now with all the highway maintenance and things like that. We have all these bridges that need to be repaired and replaced.